The DunnWisdom Morning Show. It is a new month and a new opportunity for us to shine. My name is Melissa P. Dunn. I am the CEO of MD Marketing Network. I'm also the founder of this DunnWisdom movement. You know, I pride myself on bringing you interesting change makers, folks who are not only open to sharing their lessons learned, but also willing to give us some words of wisdom. So today's guest is someone whom was introduced to me through a gentleman that I very much admire and appreciate. She is a true boss lady. Not only has she worked her way up in the field of higher education to the C-suite, I'm talking VP level. She is a vice president of a multi-campus university right here in the state of Florida. In addition to that, she is an author of the book called Bossladyship. I just love that title. Bossladyship, color me a hashtag boss lady. Join me in welcoming to the show today, Dr. Suzanne Morrison-Williams. Hey, Dr. Sue.
Hi, good morning, everybody. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show. So, you know, I absolutely love speaking with women who are in the C-suite and actually know how important it is to create a separate personal brand for themselves. And you've done that very successfully.
Okay, so I didn't understand the importance at the very beginning. At the beginning, I just thought I got the education, I had the job, and so that was all I really needed to do. I didn't understand the importance of my brand and that Dr. Suzanne Morrison-Williams had to have a brand that spoke to who she is and what she stands for. Now, interestingly, I am actually a little bit bipolar. I have two brands. Dr. Morrison-Williams is the VP of Academic Affairs, and with that comes a lot of responsibility in making sure that the students who sign up to come to the school that I administrate at, that those students, I meet the needs that they have, as well as the staff members, as well as the faculty. Dr. Sue is a slightly different persona, but Dr. Sue is an offshoot of Dr. Morrison-Williams. Dr. Sue is a life coach. Dr. Sue is a mentor. Dr. Sue is a change maker for women, specifically women of color. So that is the brand that I created, and that is what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, do you know what I find interesting before we even get to talking about the book and the brand? At what point in your career did you decide, you know what, let me make sure that I have multiple streams of income. Let me make sure that I have a brand that speaks to who I am as a woman as well as a professional.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back to a couple of years ago. Do you remember the show In Living Color where they talked about Jamaicans who had multiple jobs? I've always been that person. I've always had
Me too.
I've always had multiple jobs. But when I took the job as a vice president, and I've had that job for 11 years, it became increasingly difficult for me to have multiple gigs. So I took the gig that I thought was going to make the most amount of sense to me. And so I became a public speaker. And so I began training. And so I was training at various organizations. I would train at conferences. I would do lots of training. And that is what became the second source of income for me. However, it took other women, other boss ladies, to look at me and say to me, why are you not incorporating yourself? Why are you just doing this as a side gig? You need to actually step into your greatness and put your crown on, because my crown had been at the side. Put your crown on and do what it is that you need to do. So I made that big leap about 2.5 years ago. And the big leap was to actually create the Dr. Sue Speaks brand, which would then create the streams of income where I could separate what Dr. Morrison-Williams was making at work versus what Dr. Sue Speaks was doing, because it's eventually what all women want to do is create a side gig that becomes the gig, that becomes what you do, so that you're no longer making a living and then doing what you love, but you're doing what you love as you're living.
I love that. I love that. And you know, there are a lot of women who watch this show particularly those who are in the Women Getting It Done group, who are side hustlers like you. They're professionals, they're leaders in their field. And they, you know, decided that, listen, I need to make sure that I have multiple streams of income. And truthfully, that's the only way to build generational wealth.
Yes.
So, Dr. Sue, the thing that I find really interesting about your story is that when you made that choice, you found a natural parallel, right? It's not as if you went from being an administrator at a university to being, an engineer or something. There's a parallel to the two brands that you've created. They actually, I think, support each other.
They do. And one of the things that is extremely frustrating to me is I'm a member of a couple of women's groups on Facebook. And what really gets my goat is when women come on and go, so I want to create a second stream of income. Can you suggest to me what you think I should do? And I'm like, and then you see a bunch of women beneath that talking about, you could start you could start a podcast, which takes a while to monetize. You could open a clothing store, and these women are giving them all of these suggestions. And so my life coach hat goes on, and I start speaking to the young lady in question or the woman in question, and I say, what is it, one, that you like? What is it, two, that you are good at? And what is it, three, that you enjoy? Let's look at those three questions first, and then let's branch off from there. Because what you don't want is we want all women to be self-sustaining and able to take care of themselves. But way too many women are getting into a business because it's going to make them money, which is a very, very short-term way to look at something. And so what you find is that I now get phone calls from those women who say, I'm dissatisfied with this thing that I'm doing. Yeah, because that's not your calling. That's not your ministry. So you need to find what it is that's going to work for you and do that. And so the first, I talk about that in the book. And I also have an entire newsletter on my website. And if you sign up actually on my website, that newsletter comes to you automatically. It's the Boss Entrepreneur newsletter. And it's 5 steps. It's the 5 steps to discovering who you are, what you're good at, and what's the business that you should likely get into.
All right. I love it. You want to share what those 5 steps are?
Oh, no. I want you to go to the website and sign up for the newsletter.
I love it. Hey, Miss Joy. Good morning. Thank you for watching. Good morning, Mom. Thank you for tuning in as always. Sister Wiley, thank you for watching. Good morning to you as well. So what's a boss lady, Dr. Sue?
Oh, a boss lady is many things. And who you are as a boss lady is going to change as your life changes and as the days happen. Because my personal belief and the boss leadership that I push is that we need to do 2 things. 1, women need to support other women. And 2, women need to mentor other women. And so we just need to allow women to decide what the course of their life needs to be. I see way too many women, particularly because we have a massive women's empowerment movement going on. I see way too many women dictating to other women what their life should be. Stay in your lane and allow each woman to determine what is best for her. And once she has determined what is best for her, then what we're going to do is support her to get to her level of greatness. No, I'm not saying sometimes women don't aim high enough. I've been one of those women in the past. Sometimes they're misaligned in where they need to go. We need to assist them. But the first thing that we need to do is allow her to choose her path and then support her in her path. That is boss leadership. Because what is at the core of that is that you are respecting yourself and you're respecting another woman's choices. That's the most important thing. A woman can choose to be a boss lady like I did in corporate America. A woman can choose to be a boss lady being an entrepreneur. Those are the 2 things I actually focus on in the book. But a woman can also choose to be a boss lady as being the CEO of her home. And if a woman decides that that is her choice, that she wants to be the CEO of her home and she wants to run that and raise her children and do that to the exclusion of something else, we as women need to learn to support her. It takes all kinds of women to make sure that it happens. I've been very grateful for women who have chosen to be CEOs of their home, because when I was out being corporate boss lady, those were the women that were transporting my son to all of the wrestling matches and making sure that they kept me abreast of the things when I couldn't be at my son's matches to see what's happening. They were the ones that were taking pictures of him, streaming him. It is a network of women. And that's what being a boss lady is, understanding the network and where you fall in the network and helping other women rise so that everybody can achieve their own level of greatness. Not all of us need to be at the same place at the same time. Everybody has a journey. Let's respect everybody's journey.
Yeah. Listen, we all win when we work together, right?
Yes.
I find that sometimes it's challenging for some women to do the first step, which is to get clear about who they are and exactly what it is that they want. What advice would you give to a woman who is kind of struggling right now to decide on what her purpose is?
I refer to it as a self-audit. Now, in the book, I talk about the professional self-audit. But here's what you have to do. As a life coach, I ask 3 questions. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? Is your current course of action taking you there? So once you can figure out where you are, and that's a hard thing, figuring out where you are, because figuring out where you are is a very, it can be a very empowering process, but it can also be a painful process. Because you now have to sit down and examine yourself, the good, bad, and the ugly. What are my advantages? Where are my areas of concern and my areas of growth? Because we're not going to call them disadvantages or cons or any negative word. What are my areas and opportunities for growth? What are the things I need to learn in order for me to move on? So when you establish that first, where am I now? And who am I as an individual? And you have to be brutally honest with yourself. And that's where I got to a couple of years ago. I was brutally honest with myself when I realized the reason that I hadn't done the LLC and the reason that I hadn't created the brand and the reason that I hadn't done the website was fear. Because that meant I was going to have to change. And so once you've worked your way through that, either fear of success or fear of failure, after you've worked your way through that and understanding that change is going to come, then you can begin to create a blueprint for what you want to do moving forward. And that is sometimes where a life coach comes in for you, because you may not necessarily have all the tools that you need in order to create that blueprint. Reach out and ask somebody for help. There are a myriad of life coaches out there. I am not always a good fit for all women. Some women need somebody with a softer, lighter touch. I am more of a person who is, you have to be ready. You have to have made a choice to do the transition. And then I am a pretty good coach for you. I am very good at holding people accountable to the goals that you've set for yourself. But that's the most important thing. Finding out who you are and doing that self-audit and taking the time to process that and getting help doing that if you need to, life coaching, therapy, whatever it is that you need to do. But get honest with yourself first, because you cannot move forward from a point of being dishonest or inauthentic.
I would even add a 4th question to that. Who do you need to become in order to get what it is that you want? Yeah, that's I think, a really powerful question.
But that's a level, but that's a level 5 question. That's really a level 5 question, because you have to have gotten through all of those steps first in order to ask that question, because that question speaks to the fact that you've figured out who you are. You're comfortable in your skin. And you're not really that concerned with what other people around you have to say, because as women, let's not get it twisted. We are very, very conscious and caught up with what John Q. Public has to say. We're concerned about what our mama gonna say and what auntie gonna say and grandma and our life partners and our children and our girlfriends. We get very, very caught up sometimes in the external pieces. So you have to be very, very comfortable in your skin and not worried about what everybody else is going to say in order for you to do that. But I do agree, once you figure out who you are and where you want to be, now you have to do the branding. Yes.
Well, I mean, I kind of take an ontological view to some of these questions. And for me, I think the doing is really important, but I think also the being is very, very, very important, you know? And what you just said about women who sometimes get caught up in what other people think of them, that's a way of being.
Yes.
And I think it's, well, at least for me anyways, it's really helpful when I make up my mind about a particular goal, when I'm doing that audit that you talk about, and I look at where I am, I look at where I want to go, then I part of my question is, who am I being in this moment, in this situation that I'm in? And then who do I need to become in order to make the transition? For me, in my mind, when I think of it in that way, then the doing part becomes a little bit easier.
And that is your done wisdom. Your done wisdom is that you have figured this out. Now, the problem for many women of color is that culturally, that is not what we're taught to do. And that is something that I discovered years ago, because my book is actually an extension of my doctoral thesis. My doctoral thesis was on mentorship and women of color, and how did women of color get into leadership based on mentorship. So my book is a natural offshoot of that. However, that's not what our culture does. Our culture puts an inordinate amount of pressure on women of color, be they from the America, the Caribbean, Latin America, Asia, Indian women. Oh my Lord, women of Chinese descent. There is an inordinate, and all of those are women of color. There's an inordinate amount of pressure put on these women to face cultural norms. Now, I'm Jamaican. And I tell everybody that my mother never once talked to me about getting married, about having children. Her expectation was you're going to go to school, you're going to get a degree, and you're going to get a good job, and you're going to be able to support yourself. And that was my mindset. My mindset was I had to do all of these things. So even if I had wanted to be a homemaker, that was not the option. I remember being about 14 years old and my mother saying to me, I have no problem if you want to be a hairdresser, but here's what's going to happen if you're a hairdresser. You own the salon. You don't work for anybody. So,
no, she didn't. She's like, listen.
When I came to college, my grand aunt, who had been the head housekeeper at I can't remember. It's the Terra Nova. She had been the head housekeeper at Terra Nova. And she looked at me and she said, you are going to college to get a BS, not an MRS. So I was like, so there has been a lot of pressure placed. And I was the first of my family's generation to get a degree. And so the expectation, and after I got my degree, I was told point blank, you will now go and talk to all your little girl cousins and explain to them how this is all going to work. Because if you did it, somebody else did it. Getting my doctorate on my dad's side of the family, it was imperative because we have a lot of educated people on my dad's side of the family. And so as far as they were concerned, what's next? The master's wasn't enough. What's next? So there's a lot of expectation placed on women of color. And we're expected to do it all. You're expected to be educated, be accomplished, be a good wife, and be submissive and meek and at home. And that's the dichotomy. Be submissive and meek at home, but go out and conquer the world as a boss lady. So you're living in two separate worlds. And it is something that a lot of cultural anthropologists, as you brought in anthropology, have spoken about. The fact that women of color live in a bicultural state, just being women of color. Because there's so many pieces that go along with that. And then you throw us into corporate America. Now, I wear braids now. It took me till 2017 to be comfortable doing that. And I started wearing braids because I was going to Europe for the Christmas. And they have a different power system. So I couldn't take my curling iron and my flat iron with me. And it was going to be snowing. So I put braids in my hair that December, praying that it wasn't going to be a problem. And fortunately, that was when the world started shifting and people got accustomed to women wearing, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Wearing their natural hair. And so I ran with it. I have worn braids and locks and all kinds of things because it is an opportunity for me as a woman of color to embrace that piece of my cultural world because my own world requires me to do all of these things. And if there's one less thing that I have to do in the big world, corporate America, then I'm just going to do that. I'm going to try to be as authentic as I can, because what that does is the women around me are looking at me and my brand is my braids, my red glasses, and I usually have on red lipstick, but I was wearing a master's wearing something put on that. But yes, all the things you talked about, the branding, the being true to yourself, the authentic, understanding who you are, all of those things are things that I grew into. And so every time women look at me and go, oh, I want to be like you, I say to them, it's a process. It's a process. And you need to savor every minute of the process and learn every step along the way, all the various pieces, because nothing is not warranted. And everything in your life is leading you to exactly where it is that you need to be. You just need to listen, be patient, and take advantage of all of it until you can get to exactly where it is that you need to be.
Yeah, I want to explore part of what you said. You mentioned that there's a certain amount of expectations placed on women of color, right? Mm-hmm. When you're at home, you're expected to be meek, submissive, particularly if you're in a partnership with another person.
And if you're a Christian, because your husband's the head of the household, remember, you're the neck.
Yeah. So part of what I think, or my perception or my experience of what is a challenge for some women of color, is this whole idea of turning on and off your masculine and feminine energy, right? Because when we are a boss lady at work, then there's a certain amount of authority and masculine energy that we project while still being feminine. And then when we come home, and I find that's a little bit challenging. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know that I'm the best person, because I ended my 19-year marriage last year. So I'm not certain that I'm the best one to say that. Well, I did.
I think you're the perfect one to say it, because you're a woman of power, right? Like, was that a challenge for you?
It was.
Turning it on and off?
It is. And, my ex-husband did sometimes have to remind me by saying, you're not at work and I'm not your staff member. Because it is, you are accustomed at work to speaking with a level of authority, and here's what you need to have done, and I just need you to do it. No, it is not that you are aggressive or controlling, and I just need to make that distinction, because I think in the Black men are getting it a little bit twisted in the last year. It is not that. What it is that you are coming from a place of, I understand what's going to happen, because when you are at work, you are always looking for what is going to be the best way for us to get from point A to point B with efficacy and efficiency. That's what I do at work. So when I come home, my brain is still operating in that way. And if I see something happening that is not going to do that, then I immediately want to step in and do something. I had to learn to shut up. And I always joke, and I tell a lot of young ladies who are like, but my husband, he doesn't understand. And I said, look, bite up your jaw corner. Bite up your jaw corner. Because
say that again. Bite up your jaw corner.
Bite up your jaw corner. Because you have to pick your battles. You have to know which battle you're going to pick. So are you going to pick the battle about the kitchen being untidy? Or are you going to pick the battle about the car needing to be fixed, or this thing in the house that wasn't done? Pick your battles and decide which is the most important one. But this is what I say. You and your partner need to be equally yoked. And I don't mean it doesn't have to be equally yoked with education or equally yoked with money, because there are a substantial number of women out there earning their men. And that's another thing. If you earn more money than your gentleman or your life partner, you're going to have to learn how to tone it down, because most men are not comfortable with the woman out-earning them and being able to do all the things that they can't do and being able to provide more. So that's a whole other dichotomy, again, with women of color, because it's happening more and more. Most of the women I know earn more money than their men. And so you are always doing that balancing act. How do I make sure that I do not erode his masculinity with what I'm doing? Because if you want to go on a vacation and the vacation is going to cost $10,000, and you very well can put the vacation on your credit card and it not cost a problem, and you know that he can't, how do you navigate that conversation? That's a whole, so there's a lot that's placed on women of color. And as you were saying, that we have to navigate, that some of our white counterparts don't necessarily have to navigate, because white men still earn a lot of money. But Black women, as you know, in this country are the most educated demographic. So you have a large amount of women of color, particularly Black women, who are well educated and earn good money from their 9 to 5. And then they have a side hustle that's earning them more money. So they are able to do lots of things. And that's very intimidating to men. And so we have to learn how to not be intimidating to men. And that's causing a lot of angst right now, because some of the women that I'm talking with are saying, I don't feel like holding back and not being able to be me and do the things I want to do. I want to go here. I want to buy this. I want to do that. And I can't do it because it's going to make him uncomfortable. Well, my love, that's a conversation you need to now have with your partner. And if you and your partner are not equally yoked enough to have that very difficult conversation, then you have to involve some other people in your situation and have various conversations as to how you're going to move that union forward. But it's causing, and it's causing a lot of women problems now that I am seeing with women in their 40s and 50s. Because what has happened is we've gone through the 20s and 30s, and now we are comfortable in our skin. Our crowns are firmly placed on our head. And now we're beginning to think about, as you said, the brand building and who am I really going to be? And are you adding to the value of me and my brand? And that question is plaguing women. And the pandemic was not good, because women walked out of relationships in droves because they realized I am no longer willing to compromise who I am or what I want for the sake of being Mrs. So-and-so and stating that I have this person on my arm. I found it scary because the volume of people that it occurred with, myself being one of them.
Wow, that's a powerful advice.
Yeah.
Miss Crawford says, Miss Joy, I'm talking about Miss Crawford. Miss Joy says, allow her to choose her path and support the chosen path. Amen. Everybody has a journey. Respect their journey. Thank you for that, Miss Joy. Yes, indeed, amazing words of wisdom. Sister Wallace says, we just have lots of women who don't like to see other women to move up in life. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate.
The crabs in barrels. What's with the crabs in barrels?
Hey, Julianne. Good morning. Thanks for watching. Richard says, how can men best support the women in their lives to achieve boss ladyship? Great question.
I like Mr. McCullough. Okay, so let's answer Mr. McCullough. You picked the woman that you're with because you liked who she was. That's why you picked her. You liked everything about her. You liked her spunk, her drive, her education, her wit, her sass. You liked all of that. You don't get to change your mind midstream and decide that it's too much for you. What you do is you support her, because one of the things that we do know about women of color, they're exceedingly supportive of the men in their lives. Exceedingly. You know, there's a whole IG and TikTok community that's talking about how Black men are not supporting black women, but Black women are always supporting Black men. And so what this is, it's symbiotic support. So, Mr. McCullough, what I would say is, in the same way that you expect your life partner, significant other, when she comes home in the evening to look at you and say, hon, how was your day? Everything good? And you have that nice conversation. You turn back that conversation and go, hon, are you good? How was your day? And you have that conversation. And most women are not looking for the men in their lives to solve any problems. If we want them to assist us with the problem, we usually ask a question like, can you give me your advice? What do you think? If you do not hear those two things coming, please let it go. Let her talk. And she just wants somebody to share that experience with. And the load of being a woman of color is a load. And sometimes we just want to come home and have a partner that supports us. We want to know that that we can be vulnerable to that person, because we're required to be so strong in corporate American entrepreneurship life. We want to come home and have somebody that we can be vulnerable with, that we can share real conversations with, that we know without a shadow of a doubt that they are truly, truly supportive of everything that we're about. Or if they think that we're going off kilter, they can have a conversation with us that says, hey, love, I just want to share something with you. I don't want you to take it as I'm not supporting you or I don't believe in you, but here's something that I'm seeing. Is that something you're seeing? Is that something you want to talk to your other women friends about? Is that something you want to talk with me about? Maybe we can work it through. But if you and her have a truly supportive, loving, caring relationship, then that goes a long way. Goes a really, really long way. We just want to know that we have somebody in our life who is going to be there for us 100% of the time. If you do that, that's the job.
Oh man, it sounds like communication is the key. So what's the one takeaway? Oh, Sophia says, oh my gosh, I totally get that power dynamic in the household. Yes, indeed, Sophia. Thank you. So what's the one book? What's the one thing that anybody who purchases your book will walk away with?
They will walk away with a blueprint. When I looked, before I actually finished writing the book, I started looking at a number of other women's empowerment books that are out there, and there are a lot, and there are, many and varied. But none of them really addressed the issue of the cultural issue of being women of color and what we bring to the table versus some of the challenges that we have. Because we have some challenges, we've talked about those, but there are lots of things that we bring to the table. Because we're women of color and because we're essentially minorities, we've learned to be very good followers before we can become leaders. So we bring that to the table. And what the book does is it has a workbook built into it, which is not what a lot of the other leadership and entrepreneurship or mentorship books do. You buy the book and then you have to go out and buy the workbook. I think Marie Forleo has a massive, massive following. And her book is wonderful. Love the book. But you have to get the workbook outside of the regular book. And what I did was I did not want it to be an arduous read, so I made it very short with a built-in workbook. Do you want me to, let me show you?
Yeah, hold it up.
So this is actually the book. And
okay.
A very, it has, let me see if I can get it up. My camera is, there we go. So it's a fairly big thing, big font, sorry. But what I wanted to showcase was the workbook is actually built in to the book.
Got it.
So, right. So the very first chapter we talk about is, the professional audit. So here is the very first, yes, because I'm a teacher. So there's an assignment, there are assignments in the book, and it talks about, my name is, and I was born in, my cultural background is, the things I love about my culture are. So we start there and we talk about what it is that your culture has given you. So let's talk about you and I, DunnWisdom. What did our culture give us? Well, we're Jamaican women. You know what our culture gave us?
What?
We're a matriarchal society. From our eyes, we are accustomed to seeing women in charge, always have been. We've always seen women in business. We've had a female prime minister. We've always seen women as being in charge. And there's not one man in Jamaica who's going to tell you he run his house. Not one. He going to tell you, oh, no, she run that. I just follow her directions. So we have been given, our cultural identity is that we understand who we are within our culture. That's what our culture has given us. Jamaicans are expected to excel in whatever they do. We're a very small island. There's not one person on the face of the earth who doesn't know who Jamaica is. There are people who don't know the difference between, Georgia the country and Georgia the state, but everybody knows who Jamaica is. So we have been given a sense of self and a sense of worth that bodes very well for a lot of Jamaican women doing well. And we see that quite often. It's because we understand who we are and the power that we carry. That is a cultural legacy that not all women of color have. We do. So when you understand that, you see why it is that as Jamaican women, people like you, look how you have your own show, you are in politics, you have your own business, you have managed to boss up because we were given that lift from birth.
I love that. Boss up. So tell me, what final words of wisdom do you have to share with the audience today?
I started the show with it, and I'm going to end the show with it. Respect is key in anything. And as women, let us take them a minute to respect each other, respect each other's journey, and respect what each woman has to teach somebody else. Every single person that you meet in life has something to teach you. And the universe has put them in your path for a reason. They're either there to teach you something or for you to give them something. So remember, we talk about that symbiosis that occurs. So you are either going to give somebody something or you're going to receive something from somebody. But that's the gift. That is the gift. And so what I would like to end the show with is every time you interact with somebody as a woman in your Bossladyship, always be thinking, what is the gift that I'm leaving this person? And what is the gift that this person is giving me? Because every interaction has that. And it is up to you to figure out what the gem is that you're supposed to learn or the gem that you're supposed to give.
I love it. Great conversation, Dr. Sue. Thank you for joining us. Richard says,
thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful. You are my very first interview for my book.
Oh, look at that.
Yes.
Sophia's question is timely. She says, is the book on audio as well as print?
No, it is not, Sophia. And you can join the long line of people who are, there's an entire discussion, and there's going to be a podcast about it eventually, but there's an entire discussion about whether or not I should voice the book or whether or not I should have somebody professional voice the book. And there are two sides. Some people are like, no, you don't need to voice the book. You can do whatever you want to do. And there are other people who know me who are like, no. And it's interesting. I have white girlfriends who have said to me, you need to voice the book. They said, because they have read the book and they hear my voice in their head. So I need to voice it. But yes, audiobook is in discussion, and it involves me flying out somewhere and recording the audio. it somewhere else. So we have to wait until COVID is not a thing because I don't want to get in a plane. But yes, an audiobook is coming.
Fantastic. Well, when you're ready to launch the podcast, let us know. We'll have you back on. Julianne says words of wisdom. Thank you, Melissa and Dr. Sue. Thanks for watching, Julianne. All right, Dr. Sue, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the conversation.
So, and here's the book, everybody. If you want to get it, it is on Amazon, and I am going to put the link on my website, as Melissa said, because no, I don't have it there. I just have it on Amazon, but I'm going to go ahead and put it on my website.
All right, drsuespeaks.com. Thank you, Dr. Sue.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye.
You too. Thank you so much for joining us today. That was certainly a Power Player conversation. I will be back here on Monday. I'm sorry, today's Monday. I'll be back here on Wednesday with some success tips at 9 a.m. And on Friday, we're going to be spotlighting another Lauderhill business. Remember, be kind and loving to yourself today.